Hello and welcome back. This is the September reading wrap-up, super exciting. And this time we read 5 things, which 4 of them were books and 1 of them was a novella. So I feel like let's just jump right into it, yeah? Like, let's not waste any time. Also, I love how I have my Halloween blanket on when it's supposed to be September reading wrap-up because it's literally almost Halloween because, again, this is so late. But haha, whatever. Okay, so again, as always, I never really know what order these are in, but I'm going to start with, on this list that I have, The Final Gambit by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which is the 3rd and final book in the Inheritance Games trilogy. I say final because after I finished the 3rd one, because the 3rd one had just come out in, I want to say August or something like that, once that I read that and that had come out, she dropped that she's also doing a new book that's going to be mostly focused around Jameson and Grayson. There's their names. That sounds right to me. I feel like those are, I know Jameson. Anyways, so they're gonna focus around them kind of more and the Hawthorne brothers versus everything, but Avery and all of them are still going to be in it. So kind of interesting. So it's she said it's the last in the Inheritance Games trilogy because that's basically mostly around Avery's story, but it's not the last in the universe of the Hawthorns. I was just looking up the characters' names for The Final Gambit. Literally God bless Goodreads and all the people who put reviews, because for the life of me, sometimes I can remember mostly the main people's names, but then you get to the side characters and I'm like, girl, if I really loved the book I might remember it, or if I really loved their character, but most of the time I'm like, and that person, and it doesn't really matter, but when I'm making these videos, I'm like, who was it? So if anyone ever thinks about how there's always a pause between when I start talking about the book, it's because I'm looking it up on Goodreads, so thank you to the lovely readers who do that. But anyway, so basically The Final Gambit is the last in the series. I've talked about it in other ones. If you have not read the previous 2 and want to read them, I guess, you know what, I'm just not going to put any spoilers in this. Basically, I'm just going to keep it pretty vague. Avery inherited a bunch of money, surprisingly, whatever she's been going through. It's a book with mysteries and all of this stuff, and there's a love triangle between 2 of the brothers and her, and it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun, I'm not gonna lie. Was I through the roof when I heard about the Hawthorne brothers book that was coming out? No. Because do I like this book? Yes. Do I love this book series? No. Will I read that when that comes out? Maybe. I don't know. I guess we'll see how we feel then. Yeah, I don't really know. Okay, after that, the next book we're talking about is Falling in Reverse, which is by Julia Wolf, and it's the first in the Seasons Change series, so the more you know. This is a really random pick. I think I had this on my TBR forever. It's one of those books that I just had on, I screenshot it off TikTok or something, and then didn't look into it, didn't know anything, and then one day I was really bored and wanted a new book, and I was like, you know what should I do? And then I stumbled across it, and I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, sounds good. Basically, it's Iris is the singer in this band, and they're really popular and whatever, and basically her home gets broken into, and there's threatening stuff kind of on her walls and stuff, so she doesn't really want to, but her record label and her friends and stuff kind of make her hire a bodyguard to help her keep her safe until they at least catch whoever was doing that. So that enters the main love interest, Ronan, and he's obviously her bodyguard, and they actually met before at the park and flirted. And then it was ookie kooky, then they met again, but this time, he's her bodyguard, oh no. So, I don't know, I'm usually a fan of bodyguard romances. That sounds so ridiculous, because that's such a niche subgenre to be I'm a fan of bodyguard romances. To be honest, I think I've only read a couple, and you know what, I like those, so I'm going to stick by that statement. So I think that's why I was excited to read this one. And I also like when people are famous in books. I don't know why. That's another thing I like. And it was just like, to me. I don't think this book was bad. It was just kind of boring, if I remember correctly. I remember it being like, I don't know, like I just wanted more oomph, like something. Like I can't really describe it. Just like, it was just missing something. I think I just didn't really connect with either of the characters, so I just didn't care as much. I don't know, not a bad book, but just not the best book. But hey, it was a good enough book for, like, what it was. The next book is Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood, which, if you don't know, Ali Hazelwood, also her debut novel was Love Hypothesis, and then she did like 3 novellas, which I've also covered on the channel. So cool. This was her second book, very highly anticipated, again called Love on the Brain. Basically, it follows B. She is like a neuroscience person. And she gets offered this great opportunity to go work with NASA on their, like, building this helmet for, like, astronauts and things like that. I don't really remember exactly what it's supposed to do. I think it's just supposed to be like they go in space in this helmet. I don't really know. And she's so excited and like so amazing, whatever. So then she decides to go, but the only problem is the guy at NASA that'll be like co-leading the project with her is Levi, and her and Levi have a little bit of history. They went to grad school together for just like a year. Like he was in his last year when she was in her first year. And Levi like hated B. Like he avoided her at all costs. He like never talked to her. He actually like turned down a project, like a really cool project that he wanted to do because he would have had to work with B. So B's not super excited about this, but she's like, I'm not gonna let that stand in my way. I'm gonna like still go. I'm still gonna like do all this, make my career like the best it can be, all this stuff. Go. Woo! Yay B. And then yeah, so then she goes and blah, 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 blah. Okay, I have some issues with the book. I think my biggest issues... Sorry, my dogs just started barking. Whatever. I'm going to ignore them and finish this book, and then I'm going to go get them. But I think my biggest issues with this book, number one, I absolutely hate. I hate when books have this, like, this is like so specific, but I feel like I have read multiple books that have this like plot where it's like they have a secret account of some sort. It's always Twitter. They have a secret like Twitter account, or I guess not always Twitter, but they have a secret like account on some sort of social media that they run, and it like accidentally became super famous and no one knows it's them, whatever. And then they have like one friend who they always talk to and always get like advice from and like whatever. And then of course that person ends up being the main person, which I don't think I hate this plot, but I hate this plot when it's the subplot. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is not the main plot of the book. The main plot of the book is that B is working at NASA and she has to deal with Levi in person like all this time, and like they have all these issues. It's like enemies to lovers, whatever. But then the subplot of like, but she also has this famous Twitter account about like women and like minorities in science, and then she has this like friend who supports her and like also talks about science stuff, and like it's like, why is that? It seems so weird because that seems like a book all on its own, and this has happened multiple times. And I think a good example of using that subplot that they're using of like being famous or messaging or something as the main plot is Tell Me Three Things. I think that's a great version that uses it correctly because it's like the main thing, not the secondary thing, you know what I mean? Or at least I felt it was like that. So that was a huge thing that I just did not like in this book. Another bigger reason why it was not my favorite was because, like I said, it's like enemies to lovers. Like Levi clearly did not like B, like so obvious, or at least that's what B tells us at like the beginning of the book. And then like as you go through the book, she like goes through the specific examples of like what Levi did that was so bad and like made it so clear that he hated her and like didn't want to work with her. And I'm sitting here reading these being like, girl, like you're being ridiculous. Like, not to be like, I don't know, like these things, if someone did them to me, I would not be like, this person hates me. And maybe that's just me. I don't know, like half the things that she says, like, oh my gosh, like he couldn't possibly like he like it wasn't even like he doesn't like me, it was like he hates me, which I think is the problem too, because like I get where she's coming from, that like he's kind of indifferent about her most of the time, but that doesn't mean he hates her. And like a lot of the times, like her like her evidence for that would be like he's super outgoing with other people, but then like doesn't really like clams up when he talks to her. And I'm like, so? That could be about a million different things. And yeah, maybe that doesn't feel great, but how does that mean that he hates you? And he's still very nice most of the time when he talks to her. It's like not even like an issue. He's not like being verbally mean ever. And then like one of the like big sticking points was like she shows up in a dress one day to like class or lab or whatever, and was talking about like how she was like asking her friend for advice of how like she looked in it or something. I don't really remember. And then she like her friend asks Levi like jokingly, it's like, oh Levi, how does B look? And Levi says something like I don't even remember what he said. It was so like not important to me. I think he said like good, and like walked away. And she was like, oh my god, he thinks I'm so ugly and like I can't do this and that. And I'm like, girl, like it's not making sense. He said this and you're inferring this. Like there's clearly some issues. So like the whole book I was just so irritated because I was like with her on her side at the beginning, being like, that's so bad, he was so mean to you, who's all these things. And then as I went on, I was like, no, he literally wasn't. Like, could he have been nicer? Yeah. Did I ever think for 1 second when she was telling the stories that he hated her? No. So it was so annoying. And then also to be like, she was mad about that and like couldn't trust him for so long, even though she forgives her friends, who it's her best friend and her fiance literally like sleep together and cheat on her. And she like forgives them faster than she forgives him. Like, I'm sorry, how does that compute at all? It doesn't, is the answer. But I think this book had really high expectations for me because I really loved The Love Hypothesis, and I mean, Love Hypothesis did really well. Like, a lot of people really loved it. And I think this wasn't it. And it kind of disappoints me because reading The Simpsonist or like her novellas or whatever, I think like 2 of those I would have liked way more to become full-length books than Low on the Brain. I think this could have been a novella and the other 2 been long-form works, or even just pick from one of them. And I think I would have liked it better because this just like wasn't it for me. Do I think it was an awful book? No. But if I would have read this book first by Ali Hazelwood, I don't know if I would have read The Love Hypothesis, and that's a little frustrating. But, you know, we all have our hits and misses. Okay, the next one is the novella, and it's called Morrighan, and it's part of the Remnant Chronicles, and it's the first thing, and it's by Mary E. Pearson, like the first thing in the series, which we all know how I feel about a series starting with a novella. I don't get it. I never think it fits in. I think they always should go other places, and this is no different. So basically, this is a fantasy series, and Morrighan, the novella, is basically just this kind of like history book kind of deal. It's like I don't know how many years before, but it takes place like way before the first book does. So it's like the history of the place that the girl lives in the first one, like the kingdom she lives in, is called Morrighan, and it's based off this girl Morrighan in this book that was like years and years and years ago. I'm sure like centuries ago or something. And basically it's the story of like Morrighan used to live with like these people and like her family, and then like she fell in love with this, I think they're called scavengers, and they're like supposed to be like not, they're like, they hate each other, and they like end up falling in love and like trying to be together, but then it's super dangerous, and then stuff happens, and then eventually she goes to like she gets taken by his tribe, and they are whatever and whatever. And she also has this like gift of the knowing, which is like, it's just kind of described as like knowing your senses around you, but it's kind of like seeing in the future. She can see how events are going to play out in a certain extent. Like she can just see like, she can't really like control it super well, but it'll just be like, she gets a pic, like think like kind of like That's a Raven or something. Like she'll just like get a flash and she'll be like, oh my gosh, tomorrow they're gonna be hurt, and it's like cool. Or like, yeah, that's basically how Morgan's powers work. So that's basically the whole novella. It's just like this like kind of history of how this kingdom that we will be introduced to in the actual series is. Okay, so the actual first book in the series is The Kiss of Deception, and basically it follows her name's Arabella, but she doesn't go by that. She goes by, well, it's Lia, which I would say like Leah, right? But like I think it might be Lia, but that just sounds weird, so I'm gonna say Leah. But maybe I'm super wrong. I don't really know. But anyways, I'm gonna call her Leah. So she, or it should be like Leia. Lia. Lia. Hey, Lia. Should I just look it up? I should just look it up. Okay, I just saw a thing that said it was pronounced Leah, so I should never doubt myself again. But anyways, so Leah, she is the princess of Morrighan, and she basically is betrothed, kind of against her will, to this prince of, it's like Dalbreck or something like that. I don't really remember. Something like that. Some vibe of that. And she really doesn't want to do it. So like at the very beginning, she ends up of the book, she ends up running away with her like, I think like lady in waiting type deal, Pauline, and they are gonna like start a new life and just kind of like live away. So because she like wants to marry for love. Great, cool. I was like, I'm totally into this. And this was also described in the like thing as like a like love triangle and like all of these like mystical elements, whatever. I would kind of disagree with that, but anyways, so then the book continues. They get to this like place called Taravan, and they kind of just start living their lives there. They both become like waitresses at this like pub, and like live there. And the main girl that owns it knows who they are because she knew Pauline's mom from like way back when or whatever. But she lets them stay there. Super cool of her. And yeah, and then basically the story is that two boys are coming after her to kind of get her, both for different reasons. So we have Rafe, who is, I guess we do learn that, yeah, because I was gonna be like, should I say that? No, we do learn that. He is the prince that she was supposed to marry, that she ran away from at the altar. So he's kind of coming to see who this girl is, because they had never met, and like see who she is, and like who has the gall to do that to him, and like probably to bring her back and all this stuff. So he goes, and then Caden goes, which Caden is, he's just called the assassin, I think at this point. He's basically just been told to kill her. That's enough said. And so they both come, but they both use aliases. So they come to Taravan and are like trying to meet up with Leah and whatever, and they both do, and they end up forming like relationships with her and stuff. And this is where I start getting like, girl, because again, I said this was supposed to be a love triangle. The thing I have with love triangles, I don't think I personally actually dislike love triangles when they're a love triangle. But this, and like, I feel like 75% of the love triangles I read are not love triangles, because Leah, likes Rafe. So both the boys like Leah, I guess I should say that. Rafe likes Leah, and Caden likes Leah. But Leah only likes Rafe. That is not a love triangle, because Caden never has a chance. Like, never. Like, he was never going to get the girl. Like, that's not a love triangle to me, because she never felt that way about him. Like, maybe for like a split second she was like, he's kind of cute. And that was like it. Like, excuse me, that's not a love triangle. And then I think my biggest, and then like also the fantasy part was that like she also has the knowing and is like trying to develop the skill. And basically the first book is just like the boys and her forming relationships kind of. And I think the problem I have with this book and just this series as a whole is that it's boring. It's too long to me. It's boring. Not enough stuff happens. And then it also is just too like, let's tie the bow and make it very pretty. Like, I feel like it doesn't have enough destruction for what I feel like this book is trying to do and trying to be. And I understand that it's young adult, so like you don't want to have like a bunch of death or like a bunch of whatever. But I still think there could be ways to do it that aren't so like unrealistic to me, of like the ending of the trilogy is just such a like, we're just tying everything up with a bow, and it like angered me because I was like, that makes zero sense, the ending. And yeah, and then it's also, I didn't like that it wasn't a love triangle. Honestly, I didn't like Rafe. I thought he was really boring, and I think throughout the whole story she was like set on him, and that like clearly showed. But like, I don't really get why she was, because like, I don't I don't know. Like, I liked Kaden eons more, so I did not get why she didn't like Kaden. And I don't know, it was just boring. It was just, I see where the vision was. I like see it. And I think it was during, like, it came out like 2014 to 2016, if I'm not mistaken. It's 3 books. And then there is like a sub series that I think it's not the same characters, but it's the same world that I need to read to. I think it's like the first one's like the Dance of Thieves or something like that. Which sounds fun, sounds good, but I just needed a break after this book, because I was like, girl, or after the trilogy, because I was like, girl, these are like heavy and big. And another thing, this series did not make any sense, because as I said, the novella's first and gives you this whole history, and all throughout the series of this books, like, you see Leah like uncovering these things that we learned about as a reader in the novella of like their history, and then it takes away from any shock value, because Leah's like, oh my god, like, I didn't know this, or I didn't know that, and I was like, I did, because they told me. So it's like, what was the point of giving me the history book if the history was going to be important, and like, it was going to be revealed throughout the book series? Like, that made zero sense to me, because then I already knew. I mean, I guess I didn't know all, but I knew 75% of that, and more than the main character, which also made zero sense to me. Like, why would I know more? So I think it would have been, I think it was a cool idea and a cool thing, but I think it would have made so much more sense to do at the end of the series, just like for fans, if they wanted to read about the actual history, then they could. That makes so much more sense to me. I like don't understand why they did it that way. So that was everything I read in September. Again, not a huge haul, but hey, I think we're slowly working ourselves back up, and I think it's just, I don't know, different times call for different books. I'm kind of just in a slump, I'm not in a slump, I feel like, anymore. I'm just not finding the right books. I think that's a better way to describe it, because I've started a couple of books of like, that I've just hated, and I keep scrapping them like 100 pages or less in, which is very unlike me. So I think I just need to like read a book that I've been really super looking forward to, or try to really find a good recommendation and read something, because I've just like not really been liking the ones that I've been reading since like July. I mean, there've been some good ones in there, but I think for the most part it's not been super great, and I think that's why I've kind of been reading slower, because I don't care as much. Like, that's why, like, I'm reading a book right now, and I'm gonna DNF it. I decided today, because I was literally like, earlier I was like, oh, I should go read, and then I was like, like, I don't really care about that book, and I was like, that's an issue. Like, if I'm ever, like, not wanting to read because the book's not interesting to me, like, I just need to, like, cut my losses and, like, DNF it, and, like, move on to a book that I'm actually gonna like and actually gonna enjoy. So I think I've just been kind of going through that, but you know, whatever. But yes, yay. Thank you for coming along with me to this September reading wrap up. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Oh, goodbye, you lovely, beautiful human who is amazing and lovely, deserves the world, and I hope you have a fun holiday season, whatever you celebrate. I hope it's fun, because it's starting, the Halloween season and everything. So, hope you have an amazing time. Thank you for watching this video. Love you, and see you.